Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. You might wonder what the heck I'm wearing here, just because I'm not wearing something normal. I've decided to show this off a little bit because it's awesome and I like it. It's cool. It's a cool shirt. What do you want from me? It's actually my AGDQ shirt, one of the two AGDQ shirts I bought, and I just wanted to show it off because it's really cool. Because I don't know about you guys, but I actually really like the game this is based off of. If anyone can guess the game this is based off of without me telling you, that would be, awesome, but regardless. There we go. I can kind of show more of it off if I kind of do this. Here, I'll just stand like this for a bit. Don't mind me. We don't have much to talk about this week, weirdly enough. A lot of rumors. Lots of rumors this week. Super Mario RPG, that is correct. You can tell because there's a giant star, right? Because there's only one Mario game with stars in it, right? Yeah, no, this is Super Mario RPG on the SNES. The real thing that would give it away is Mallow here, and way down at the bottom, Geno, or Geno. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that, actually. Like, there's nothing that even comes close to doing voice acting for the SMRPG series, so... Anyways. So, random news, like I said. Hang on, let me pull up my random news list, which is over here. Sorry. Titanfall 3 is not in development. Wait, that's not a good thing. Although, as an aside, whenever we get to the point where we start, being willing to change, edit, add to, take away from the premiere run list, I'd just like to say publicly that I am totally cool with you guys adding Titanfall 2 to the premiere run list. Oh, yeah. In related news, If and But has decided that I should never stream that for some reason. I'm not actually sure why, but I think it's because he secretly hates me. I don't know. It's just something I get a vibe from him. Like Justin T seriously hates me, but If and But definitely hates me. It's just kind of weird, but that's okay. It's okay. I don't mind. I understand. Just T 877. See? They hate me. It's a thing. It's okay. It's okay. I understand. Hate's kind of a strong word, though, isn't it? So dislike, despise, pucinate. I don't know. Actually, so real quick. First of all, thank you. Thank you very, very much, Justin. Thank you very, very much, If and But, for those subs. I do appreciate them. Thank you. Little bit of real news for me in real life. First of all, I do finally have the donor box thing set up and ready to go. Some of you are like, what the heck is that? Well, I spent a fairly large amount of time, like a fairly decent amount of time, trying to figure out basically an alternative to Patreon. Because I know quite a few of you, well, at least some of you, have personally reached out to me saying, I don't want to support Patreon. I don't want to be a part of Patreon anymore. And Patreon itself is going in a direction I don't like, to be blunt. Like, I don't want to take sides because, like it or not, the Patreon thing has already become a left versus right thing, which I despise, that we're forcing it to be a political statement. But regardless of the politics of the situation, I am legitimately not in favor of the idea, just purely financially and commercially, of where Patreon is trying to lean towards. So having a backup plan is a good thing. As I've talked about before, having a backup plan is kind of been difficult because nothing does it as well as Patreon. And to be blunt, that's still true. There is still no service out there that does everything I need to the level of convenience and all of the variables I need from a service like Patreon does. However, we do now have DonorBox. DonorBox is basically a similar thing. You have to sign up with a DonorBox account, and then you pledge so much a month, and then every month I get paid from that. It's basically the same general deal as it was over on Patreon. It's just going through DonorBox instead, and avoids them and theirs, and they take actually significantly less of a cut, actually. Although at that point it's almost irrelevant. DonorBox accepts PayPal and just straight up credit cards. I'm going to say this one time though, really quick here. Please, if you are going to donate anything on DonorBox, don't make my mistake. Make sure you actually sign up before you pledge, because you can pledge anonymously. But if you do that, shutting down that pledge is actually really, really difficult to do. In fact, I am still trying to shut down my own test pledge to myself. So make sure, if you're going to use DonorBox, make sure you sign up first, because then, you have a login, and then you go like, aha! And with the login, you have the ability to just have a turn off pledge button. Not the best system. Not the best system. But, what do you want? Now, what else? So that's a thing. You're probably wondering, where do you find that? It's on the website. It's right down the... it's right below the Patreon button on the website, on the right-hand side of the website. So, lowrunner.com, website. Another bit of real news. So I have finally narrowed down... Thank you, SJ. I have finally narrowed down my moving situation to basically 3 different complexes. Oh no, I prefer Patreon, honestly. Just to be completely blunt. But it's always good to have something Kirino and Melciniton there. It's very good. By the way, thank you very, very much, Melciniton, and thank you very, very much, Kirino. As ever, I do much appreciate those subs. What would you like to put those subs towards? Patreon is basically still the better system, but having a backup plan is a good thing, and I know some people don't want to support Patreon, so that's what the other system is there for. But I would still prefer you guys use Patreon. It's basically, it is still the superior system, as I mentioned earlier. What else? Okay, so I already get income from like 4 different sources right now. So I've narrowed it down to 3 different complexes, apartment complexes for moving, and I've actually applied last night to the first one. Basically, my top pick. I'm pretty sure they're going to deny me because it's actually a nice place, and a place I'd actually like to live at. So, yay. After that, I have a backup plan, and then I have a backup plan to the backup plan. I also have a worst-case scenario plan, but I sincerely doubt we're going to go down that far. So I just thought I'd give you an update, because I know some of you actually care about that. And I've been kind of frazzled as a consequence of that. For some reason, it's really stressful. I don't know why. So Ice Tray asks, will donor box donations be able to suggest informed for ruminations? Yes, but I don't... Basically, okay, I don't know is the answer right now. I'm going to have to find a way to get in contact with donor box donors in order to basically contact them in the same way I do on Patreon. I'm pretty sure I'll have a method of doing that, but I'm not 100% certain of that, to be completely honest. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's the idea. At the very least, what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to have a list of, like, all the people who are on DonorBox, and I'll be able to pop onto Loreweek and be like, guys! And point you towards the voting document or something like that when the floodgates open. Because, yeah. Max Time says, if Patreon gets away with what it wants to do, what am I going to do? So what Max Time is talking about is Patreon is trying to... Thank you, by the way, everyone who's with well wishes and everything. What Patreon is trying to do is basically they're trying to expand into making more money. Now, we all know why that is, and you could say it's because of greed, and that's probably a valid statement, but in this case, it's actually specifically because of the fact that their investors want Patreon to be making more money, because the quarterly cycle thing, the quarterly return concept, is the source of almost all the evil in the world. That's not quite true, but by God, it's close to true. So much of life is ruined by the quarterly return mentality. Anyways, so what Patreon's been trying to do, or I shouldn't say has been, let's use correct terminology here. What Patreon is thinking about trying to do is trying to make it so that Patreon basically owns the content of the creators that they're pushing out, which will give them then the ability to license it and sell products based on it and blah, 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 blah. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. If they do that and it's optional, then, nothing's going to change. I'm just going to stay on Patreon and not sign up for that. If they do that and that's mandatory, then I will have to immediately leave Patreon in its entirety, because one of the big things for me, and now it has been since the beginning, is that there's only one person who owns my show, and that is me. So, and worst case scenario, I will have to completely abandon Patreon, because the idea of a company owning my product, my services, is not acceptable in basically every way. So that's worst case scenario. I don't think it's going to come to that, to be completely honest. We'll see. Moving on. Where's my other random news? Yeah, I would literally not be self-employed if that happened. Yeah, sorry, Adam. I forgot to do this last week. I apologize for that. So, random news. I already mentioned that Titanfall 3 is not in development, which is funny because I've actually heard a source saying that Titanfall 3 is in development. Um, CRPGs are coming out to Switch. They're coming out to Switch, and they're coming out to Xbox, and they're coming out to PS4, I believe, which is cool. And you might specifically, it's like the Baldur's Gates, Icewind Dales, you know, those specific CRPGs. So that's really cool. Like Trickster Slab there, he's pretty cool too. He's not as cool as Don't May Cry 5, but he's still very cool. To DMC 5. Thank you. For real. Earlier, 2 people don't subbed and didn't tell me what they want to put it towards. So if you want to put it towards anything, just let me know. Someone actually... I'm sorry. Apparently we're still on the Patreon thing. Someone asked, can they really do that? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's... It is not illegal. Basically, Patreon could just say, all right, here's the new deal. If you're going to produce content through our service, we now own your content. That's actually a fairly typical thing for, let's say, television back in the day, or radio is another example of this. Or how about this? Let's ask, how many of you guys think Utada actually owns the music that she sings? Granted, that's not a great example because the music licensing industry is just evil. is a disgusting, horrible thing. But yeah. How much of a cut does DonorBox take? It's some minuscule amount. It's like 1%. I don't even remember off the top of my head. I can look it up really quick. Let's find out. It is not a lot. It's basically an operating cost amount. You're gonna have to give me a minute to find the information. I do know that if you go... So, okay. It is some absolutely minuscule percent. I know this. Here it is, 1.5%. So 1.5% is taken by DonorBox, and then Stripe takes, I think, 2% if you go through Stripe, and then PayPal takes like 2.5% or something if you go through PayPal. So a max total of about 4% taken out, which is negligible. Kingdom Hearts 3 is the worst game ever made. But no, man. Where was I? So anyways, those games are coming out on the Switch and other consoles. I'm debating if I'm going to buy them, because, I mean, having Baldur's Gate again seems kind of nice, but at the same time, it wasn't... Hello? It wasn't a proper remake that we got of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. We got, you know, remasters, ports, which... PayPal is far more of a hassle than Patreon, which is why we are not using PayPal. You can ask Rax, actually. Rax was helping me test that. He wasn't the only one, but yeah, PayPal is just a aggravation to utilize for this kind of service. In fact, I do know one viewer who's probably going to be watching this on the VOD who basically willingly decided to go through PayPal themselves rather than Patreon or anything else because, well, basically because it means that, you know, I get a larger chunk of the amount that they actually donate. But to be clear, that one viewer is an exception. That one viewer is willing to go through a hassle to make sure I get more of the money. That's that's where that's going, you know. I would never recommend PayPal as a regular thing for everyone, and that's one of the reasons why I have not set up a regular PayPal setup for that, because I can do that. How many of you guys know Tencent? I've been mentioning them a few times. Tencent is a Chinese company that... Yeah, no kidding, Rex. That one viewer is my largest supporter and has been for years. I'm still to this day astonished by how much money that person gives me. Tencent, so in the interests of no controversy, I've decided actually not to talk about what Tencent does in their own country, but I do want to talk about what they're doing outside of their country. Tencent, just this last week, bought in a fairly sizable share of Reddit. In fact, Reddit was seeking a specific investment fund amount, which is the equivalent of asking for a loan and offering shares in result of that kind of a thing. And Tencent basically forked over about half of that by themselves, which would mean Tencent owns an absolutely overwhelming majority share of Reddit. Yeah, 150 million. It's a big chunk. It is not a small chunk. Now, they don't actually own 50% of Reddit. That's not how that works. But they do own a very large chunk of Reddit. And I believe this actually puts Tencent... I could be wrong about this, because some of this still hasn't gone through yet, so I couldn't check the numbers. But they would... I'm pretty sure that makes Tencent the majority shareholder of Reddit. For those of you not aware, and I said I wouldn't talk about what they do in China, but just one thing. Just one little tidbit here. I just want to mention, Reddit was actually banned in China by Tencent. Anyways. It's specifically, for those of you not aware, I'll just go over this very briefly. China has really strict laws about what is allowed and what is not when it comes to basically everything. And I don't want to get all dystopian here, but I mean these are documented facts. You know, the fact that they will lock down. You can't talk about certain things. You can't show certain types of content. Certain types of parodies are not allowed, etc., etc., etc. So Reddit was basically ruled as something that violates that, like across the board. So yeah, the Great Firewall of China is what they call that. Yeah, exactly. Tencent banned Reddit on behalf of the government. Because the reason I mention that is that Tencent is one of the major companies that the Chinese government uses specifically to go through and prevent certain people from seeing the right things or the wrong things or anything whatsoever, you know, to make sure that the content meets with the requirements of the government. And yeah, they're the list of what's allowed and what isn't is a constantly changing and weird thing, and let's just say that it's a nightmare. If you ever wonder why some, you know, non-Chinese company is going really weirdly out of their way to censor very specific things, but not other things, it's probably because they're appealing to the Chinese market. Anyways, so, moving out of that territory. Well, where's my notes? Before Telltale self-destructed, there was a group of 4 people who bowed out of Telltale and were like, you know what? I want to make our own gaming company with blackjack and hook. So they decided to go off and make a company called Ad Hoc. Now, Ad Hoc is basically an attempt at making Telltale 2.0. They have flat out said that they don't want their company to be larger than 4 people because they felt that the increased size of the Telltale company, before it completely self-destructed, was actually stifling creativity. So as a consequence, they're staying at just 4 people, which has its own problems, but whatever. And they've been trying to hint at what they want to do, but not really. Basically, what I'm pretty sure, based on their statements and based on what they've already worked on, that they're trying to go ahead and make a deal with Netflix to go ahead and move forward with interactive television, which is something that's been slowly kind of moving forward as an idea. For those of you not aware, you can actually watch Minecraft, the Telltale Minecraft game, on Netflix and play it while you do it. Now, I keep putting those in quotes because it is an interactive thing and you are supposed to make decisions, but it's not the full Telltale game. Basically, imagine if like all the different decisions that you make in a Telltale game were pared down to just a few major ones. So you don't get to decide every little thing; those just are decided automatically. But you do have to pick the good things, and all of the little puzzle sections where you walk around trying to solve things are basically played for you as a non-interactive medium. And that's kind of the direction they're going with that. As an aside, I do kind of like the idea. I'm big on interactive media in general, have been since the 80s, so it's curious to see where they're going with that. Activision Blizzard. Okay, so this, I mentioned rumors, rumor, but multiple sites have reported that there are a significant amount of layoffs that are going to be hitting Activision Blizzard soon. Which sucks, if I'm just being completely blunt. And I know you're probably thinking, aha, Lore's all happy that Activision Blizzard's taking to the pants. No. People are going to lose their jobs. Why would that be a good thing? Now, that being stated, though, again, this is still the realm of rumor. If that's going to hit, it's probably going to hit next week. You know, the week we're about to walk into, or the week we technically have walked into. But I have to point this out, because, so this is part of their own quarterly returns was lackluster. I actually talked about this during one of my streams. I think it was the FF14. No, it was the Warframe stream, I think, where I was just ranting about how stupid it is that people are comparing other companies. Financial people, investor people, stock analyst people are comparing other gaming companies to Epic because of Fortnite. Because Fortnite's successful. Why aren't you doing that? And so I have a feeling that that's going to start hitting the financial side because, again, that's, the money people are the ones who actually make decisions when it comes to companies, and the people who always tend to lose their jobs are the people who don't really deserve to, statistically speaking. We don't know if this is actually happening or not, honestly. Yes, they did actually, Prog. We don't actually know if this is 100% true or not. Again, this is the realm of rumor. But I do have to point out that if this is true, this is bullcrap, because they just hired a new CFO with a sign-on bonus of $15 million freaking dollars. I heard several people, a weirdly large amount of people, defend the amount of money they threw at that new CFO. I'm with someone getting paid well. I am. Like, that CFO is actually a legitimately difficult job. That person should make decent money. But the kind of salary they were going to make, which was $900,000 a year, by the way, even ignoring the bonus, $900,000 a year is a lot of money. That's insane. So, let's ignore the bonus for a second. $900 a year would pay for quite a few of those people they're laying off there. I'm just saying. $900 a year is more than just about any individual deserves, just to be completely blunt about that. Like, I'm sorry to get into a slightly controversial topic here, but at a certain level of wealth, it's just bonus points. At a certain level of wealth, it's just, it's just, right? There's a reason why if someone who is actually wealthy doesn't, okay, I'm sorry to segue here, but people who are truly wealthy usually don't actually have that much cash on hand, that much available money to use at any given point in time. Instead, all of their wealth is locked away into 17 different things, and 17 might be lowballing it. And all of that money just kind of cycles around going towards other things, and then its little kickback goes to them, and that provides them their pittance, basically. But even that pittance is still in the 7-digit range, so it's just... Yeah, $900,000... Hang on. Let me do a direct thing. Let's talk about how many years I would have to work at my current income level to make $900,000. Gross, obviously. Let's ignore taxes. Where's my... There it is. Just real quick, just to give you an idea here. And I'm not exactly poor at the moment. I would have to work for 22 and a half years solid. 22 and a half years. How many of you in chat, you don't have to answer this, how many of you in chat are younger or at the age of 22? No, you're right, Hazardous. I've seen those same reports. I know what you're talking about. 22. Oh, we'll get there, Nerdman. Don't worry. Just picture how long 22 years is. That guy made that in a year. Is making that this coming year. just picture that. Oh my gosh. Oh. Yeah. So I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I should have that money. No, that's not my point. I really don't think anybody really needs to be making that kind of money in just straight up salary. But I'm getting enough topic. Anyways, point being, layoffs. Yes! That's so great. No, it's not. This is sarcasm. What does a CFO do? They're basically the main money person for a company. Just summarize that as much as I can, because the CFO's job is actually very complex. Basically, they are the head financier of the entire company. They manage the books, they run the accounting department, they run the budget department, just about everything, at least a good CFO, I should clarify that. A good CFO who's actually doing their job properly should basically have every money decision cycle through their office for a company. So it is a legitimately large job that requires a legitimately major amount of work and effort. But not $900 a year. Nobody should make $900 a year. Anyways. The Exchequer, Britain, is a good example of someone who basically has the same type of job as a CFO. Or a chief treasurer, or whatever you want to call that. Man, I don't, Prog. I really don't. I don't think any job deserves 900 a year. 100 a year? Sure. Yeah, no, that's easy. Because 100 a year is a lot of money. 100 a year would still take me about 3 years to make. I'm not even talking. No, let's not get into this. You know, how much? What's his name? Rooney, over on Manchester United, who makes like $300,000 a match. $250. I could see 250. You know, for like the really, really difficult, really stressful jobs, like a good CFO, or like, you know, an actual brain surgeon or whatever, or a phone making company. Oh, he's shifted? See, I haven't been following Manchester for like over a year at this point, because I think I talked about that. Apparently Rooney retired. Oh, that poor man. I'll have to retire with millions of dollars. Sorry. I didn't actually like Rooney that much. And not just because he made a stupid amount of money. There's a rumor. We'll keep being in the realm of rumors here. There's a rumor that there's going to be a Nintendo Direct this week, actually. And the rumors say that, you know, there's going to be news about Luigi's Mansion 3. There's going to be news about Metroid Prime. There's going to be news about all sorts of stuff that we want to hear. What I find amusing about this is still the realm of rumor, but what I find doubly amusing about this is that the way Nintendo Direct usually does it is they announce that they're going to do a Direct, like, right before they do it. Usually, like, one day before the Direct actually goes live. I sometimes wonder if that's the correct decision. I know that sounds like a weird thing, because I usually like it when they announce things just right in advance. But at the same time, you know, there's been only a few exceptions, like when Smash happened. They mentioned there's going to be more Directs the month. It was November, October, something like that. There's going to be more Smashes, and it's totally going to... Then there's going to be more Smash Directs. You know, that was an actual thing. But otherwise, it's just pa-cha! Out of nowhere. Regardless, I do have to say that if they go ahead and say, hey, you know, there's going to be a Nintendo Direct, I'll go ahead and cover that. We'll talk about it. We'll see. There is a substantial amount of evidence that there is, in fact, going to be a Metroid Prime trilogy on the Switch, which would be awesome. But that's regardless of this current rumor, so we'll see where that goes. Enderal, which is a mod for Skyrim, is going to get its own standalone release? For those of you not aware, Enderal is a very much supported premiere run. We're doing a premiere run of the Enderal mod at some point or another. A lot of people have put interest into that. I don't know when we're doing that, but that's off topic. The point being that apparently it's getting its own thing. Apparently you need to own Skyrim to get it, but you don't have to install Skyrim to get it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, but that'll make it interesting to go ahead and do Enderal, basically segregate from Skyrim. I just find that fascinating, because I don't think there's been a lot of examples of mods becoming standalone things. There are examples of that. I mean, Gary's mod comes to mind immediately, or the Black Mesa thing, but this is still kind of an unusual thing to happen. What does the mod do? It's its own quest, basically. It's its own content built into Skyrim. And it's supposedly good. I mean, I actually don't know that much about it, because I like to walk into these things relatively blind. So, we'll see when we get there. Oh yeah, Apex Legends came out last Monday. I've been talking about that a little bit with some of my friends and some of you guys. Apex Legends, for those of you not aware what that is a new Battle Royale game, because that's what we need in our life right now. Now, the weird thing about Apex Legends is, first of all, it's made by the same people who made Titanfall 2. This is why we know Titanfall 3 is not being made, or maybe it is, because people are disagreeing on that. But what we do know is that Apex Legends is apparently going bonkers as far as viewing figures. In fact, it has actually already surpassed Fortnite's own viewing figures. And quite a few sites, again, financial sites, have been like, oh my god, it's going to defeat Fortnite. I don't know if I buy that, personally. Now, as usual, I don't have any interest because it's a PvP-only game. That's just not my bag. But... And you guys have already flat out told me you have no interest in me doing Fortnite. If you have no interest in me doing Fortnite, then you definitely have no interest in me doing anything else like that. But I have heard that it is a surprisingly good game. The way it was revealed was awesome, though. I will go ahead and say that. I know that sounds like a weird thing, but what I mean by that is I personally approve of the way it was revealed, because I think that's a good system. Now, I understand that that only appeals to people like me, and I get that, and I'm willing to play, compromise in order to push this out again. But I do love the idea of something that's coming out tomorrow. If they announced, like, right now, Metroid Prime 4 is coming out tomorrow, which they won't, but, if they did something like that, I'd be like, yes, that's awesome. I would be super on board with that. However, as has been pointed out already, this is just how it works, isn't it? We're already getting the Doom clones and the Command & Conquer clones, and you get it. It's yet another clone game. It's yet another thing that will encourage people to go ahead and continue doing more into the Battle Royale genre until it is leaked dry, and then they'll move on to the next genre, which is basically how that works, and has always worked since, like, the 80s. Actually, no, since the 70s. There's a reason that crash happened with Atari, and one of the significant reasons contributing to that was clone games. And yes, I know, Nerdman, I saw. I've already bought it. Yeah, GTA clones, Call of Duty clones, this is an old thing. This is nothing new. Now, whether Apex Legends is actually good or not, I have no idea. I mean, how could I possibly know that? But I just mention it because I'm hoping that this is like the midway stream of the thing. Because remember, Fortnite itself was a PUBG clone too. The biggest difference was that Fortnite actually threw themselves into it with gusto and tried to support themselves on a level that PUBG didn't, and PUBG spent most of their time trying to sue Fortnite. For some reason, that wasn't a winning strategy. I can't imagine why. Yeah, WoW clones. I actually got a lot of rancor and bile when I was calling Rift a WoW clone, because that wasn't an insult. I wasn't saying that as a derogatory statement, but people were like, "Dude, no, you're wrong. You're stupid. You're dumb." I don't mean that statement as an insult. It's a good. I mean, right? Is Rift still around? I have no idea, actually. No, I do not, Nerdman. I've stopped following comics years ago. Is PUBG still relevant? PUBG won Game of the Year last year from Steam. Anyways. Why? I'm dead serious. I am dead serious. If you pull up the Steam Game of the Year things that people voted for, PUBG won Game of the Year for 2018 for Steam. I don't even know what to say about that. What am I saying? So let's get to questions, because I have nothing else to talk about for random news. So, I actually have no news worthy of discussing this week, other than the personal stuff which I already talked about. All I have is the questions. I suppose that's a matter of debate, Ice Tray. So the first question is about the DCMU, I guess? I'm not actually sure what we're calling it at this point in time. So this is a question. DC has approached you, and it's like, "Hi, listen. I want you..." Baron, why do you keep saying that? I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Like, I already talked about the Machinima shutdown last week. I don't know why you keep bringing this up. No, Probe. So, the people have shown up, and they're like, "Hey, listen. We don't actually have a mainliner. We don't have a Kevin Feige equivalent for the DC Cinematic Universe." So, yeah, DCCU. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? The DCFU. Yeah, I know Screw-Attack closed down. We've already discussed this. I have nothing new to add. So they want you to be the new mainliner for this, and they want you to set up movies leading up to Justice League 2. So what characters do you go with? Which movies do you go with? And do you acknowledge the continuity of the Snyder era? As usual, I pause for a minute to let you guys talk before I say anything. Max Time says nope. Well, see, speaking both creatively and financially, they only really have functionally two options when it comes to approaching the continuity leading up to Justice League 2. Option one is to just say, yes, it's canon, and to basically throw resources and effort into trying to restore it. Let me put it to you this way. Let me use an analogy here. They have an option to restore a broken down house, or they have an option to burn the house down and build something new there. Because that is effectively the options at this point. This is the options they are actually facing in real life, regardless of this question, this theoretical. So they have to look at this and be like, do we want to try and make that good, which is going to take time and effort, but it's worth noting that usually if that succeeds, because it is a risk, that usually tends to be more rewarding. People are getting more invested because you actually somehow made it work. Or you burn the sucker down and you start from scratch. Now, there's no picking and choosing here. You can't just say Wonder Woman and Aquaman are canon, but not BVS or or Justice League or Man of Steel. You have to get rid of all or build a new one, right? Which do you go with? You're right, Nerdman. Aquaman is still selling well to this day. Aquaman is still selling well. Wonder Woman is still my favorite film. Oh yeah, I actually forgot about Suicide Squad. Wonder Woman is still my favorite DCCU movie, personally. Like, I legitimately liked that film. So what do you do? Do you knock it down, or do you start over, or do you kind of... FF14 is definitely a restore. What Eingrad brings up, it's a video game, not a movie, but that is a restore. FF14 1.0 was restored into FF14 ARR. They acknowledged continuity, they acknowledged all the decisions and story elements and points that happened before. They built the restoration into the lore, and the basic game engine and concepts and otherwise design of the game was basically rebuilt within the bones of FF14 1.0. To use an equivalent here, this would be like FF14 being shut down completely and FF14.5 being a new game built from scratch. Make sense? Like that's the relative equivalent of the two choices here. Like, love Disney there? He would try to destroy Disney, like all of it. That's how much he loves Disney. Thank you, love Disney. Thank you very, very much, as ever. Would you like to put that sub towards something? Now I'm going to go and be honest. I'd kind of try to keep it canon. I would go out, I would reach out to Ben Affleck, I would reach out to Henry Cavill, I would reach out to Gal Gadot, and I would say, oh, and I would reach out to, oh god, I can't think of his name. The guy who plays Flash, he's actually pretty good, I like him. And I would reach out to Mimosa, and I'd be like, alright, listen. The old executives are gone. I'm in charge now, and I'd like to make this work. You want to work with me on this? And depending on how that meeting went, would decide where we go going forward, because I would need those actors on board, and those actors not being on board has been one of the issues. Now, I do still firmly think that that's a management fault, but we'll see. It doesn't mean he's gone permanently hazardous. They fired him. That doesn't mean I wouldn't have the ability to bring him back. Also, historically speaking, there are plenty of people who act in films and films and shows at the same time. That's not a new thing. Like Maze there, he's actually in 3 shows and a movie all at the same time. He's crazy. I don't know why he does that much acting, but it's his thing, so, you know, whatever. Whatever makes him happy makes me happy. So that's my point. You know, I would reach out to those crew, because I'm a firm believer of the idea that you got to keep going. And first of all, I actually like Henry Cavill. Like, I legitimately do. He's a good actor, and he's actually throws himself into his work. And I think Ben Affleck actually did a surprisingly good version of Batman, which I was very hesitant on walking into, but I'm with him on that. Gal Gadot is awesome. You know, first saw her in the Fast and the Furious franchise, and then she just kind of became Wonder Woman. And, of course, I love Mimosa. I watched Stargate Atlantis. So, yeah, no, I'd reach out to these people. And, of course, the guy who plays Flash, whose name I don't know, really did nail an excellent version of Flash. He did an excellent job of that. So, like I said, I'd reach out to these people. And the guy who plays Cyborg, too. Sorry, I actually forgot about him. I would reach out to all these people, try to get them on board. Apparently it's Momoa. My bad. Thank you, by the way. Thank you very, very much, Maze. As ever, much appreciate those subs. Do you want to put those towards anything? So, Ezra Miller, thank you. Ezra Miller. So I would want to go and say and start over basically, and I would go ahead and have I would have basically Aquaman be a launch-off point for where I would go for the next movie. I'm not sure what I would make the next movie, but the next movie would deliberately reference and indeed probably become a consequence of Aquaman. Give me just a moment. 88. Okay. Dark Messiah. So noted. Thank you again, Maze. I agree with you on that, Nervin, but he's there, and I'm committed to the idea of making it work, so... Yeah, so, make whatever the next movie is a direct consequence of, you know, the oceans rising, the ships, the trash, all of the stuff that affected the surface world when it came to the events of Aquaman. It's a very minor spoiler. It's in, like, the first act of the film. Sorry about that. And I would try to move forward using that as, like, a launching point for the next point, which is, admittedly, I just realized is basically borrowing from the Avengers, but I didn't mean to do that, I swear, because it's just a logical consequence. When I say borrowing from the Avengers, what I mean is the governments and organizations of the world kind of waking up to the fact that supers, you know, capes, are a thing, and kind of adjusting to that and working with that and trying to go forward with that. So that's kind of the general tone I'd go with. And of course, honestly, I'd probably make that a bit of a heavy Bruce vehicle, because he, to me, feels like the one who would be most involved in dealing with that. And notice I say specifically Bruce, not Bats. I have enough faith in Ben Affleck as an actor, and in the, you know, the fans and the writing team that we would get on board as in general, in order to be able to write a good Bruce movie. Oh yeah, he'd be Batman every night. We have to have at least one action scene, right? But something like that. After that, I'm not sure where I'd go. Like, I don't want Justice League 2's villain. Like, you got to build up to a villain, right? And I don't want Justice League 2's villain to be just, you know, hey, here's Darkseid, or Darkseid if you prefer. I'd have to think about that. Although, I'll be honest, my first and immediate thought is Brainiac, if I'm just being blunt. But then again, I actually really liked Injustice, so what the hell do I know? I think that's a cool idea too, Pyman, and I think we could do some work with that as well. I know it's pronounced Darkseid. I don't care. Forgive me for digging in my heels on this one, but Darkseid is a really dumb character who I have hated forever. He has been a get-off-my-page character ever since he was first introduced. So I call him Darkseid as a way of insulting him. Because screw him. But, you know, the problem is Brainiac is, like, one of the highest tiers villains we have when it comes to soups, right? We've talked about this before. So I'm not sure Brainiac should be in Justice League 2. However, I do have to also mention the fact that we have, you know, actually I'll give you that. Darkseid was actually okay in the DCAU. But then again, everyone was okay in the DCAU, so whatever. We have to bring audiences back. You know, we have to reestablish consumer trust in the DCCU, right? So bringing Brainiac back seems like a good choice for that, but honestly, I don't think I would. I think, if anything, I'd probably go ahead and have the Justice League 2's villain be Darkseid, and then have that be a build-up to the eventual thing, which would eventually lead to Justice League 3, which would end up having Brainiac be the villain for that. I also have to admit, one of the things I would do is I would try to reach out to these actors while they're doing this and try to get them to sign, let's call it cross-movie contracts. If you don't know what I mean by that, basically it allows for a certain amount of screen time and a certain amount of lines that an actor is then in, but doesn't get full wages for. Let me explain what I mean by that really quickly. Let's say I wanted to do a Flash movie, and let's say I really wanted Ben Affleck, to be in the Flash film, right? If I just go ahead and sign him on for that, I would basically be paying full price for Ben Affleck. His agent would charge me, you know, Ben Affleck prices for him to be a side character or a cameo. And as a consequence, I'd probably want to make him more of a character because now I'm paying so much money for him. However, if during the initial contract signings you get these little addendums added, there's a certain allotment which you're allowed, and so it's like, okay, you're also going to do a couple of scenes over in this film, and those couple of scenes will not charge full price. The catch is you almost always have to sign that stuff up front. So when first reaching out to these actors, I would bring that very point up. Because I would want these various characters to show up in each other's films. As much as I like the MCU, one of its biggest flaws, in my opinion, is that the characters do not show up in each other's films. That's actually aggravated me since the MCU's inception. Thank you very, very much, Peter. As ever, much appreciate those subs. Would you like to put that sub towards anything? Yeah, Feige did exactly what I'm talking about, especially in Phase 3, but he did this here and there. There's a reason why the guy who plays Rogers showed up for one scene in Thor 2, for example. And Civil War is probably one of the best examples of what I'm talking about overall. No, not Mr. Mixelplick. Let's not do that. So, cross-continuity, multiple appearances, kind of a lead-up, Darkseid. That's probably where I'd go with that. And I suppose I've answered the question in full here. If we just wiped the board down, just Chris Evans, I know it's one of the Chris's. There's so many Chris's in Hollywood right now. If we were, just to keep going for just a moment, if we were to wipe the slate clean and just start over new, no origin stories. Let me just start with that. No origin stories. We've seen them. We don't need to see them again. Nobody needs to know how Superman came to be. Nobody. Nobody. I'm sorry. I know this is kind of a tired thing, but at this point in history, with superhero comics, superhero movies, excuse me, being as big as they are at this point, there's no reason to follow, DC's been around since the 20s. Come on, guys. But yeah, no, I agree, Jaluta. If we're going to wipe the board, we need to build up to the Justice League. Honestly, like MCU Phase 1 did. Slow build up, have a recurring thread going through it. Luthor, I'd make Luthor the villain of the first Justice League. That's easy. I would also make him not be completely evil. I would make Luthor. Just my opinion on that. That's true, Mikaros. I forgot they even did that. So why do you think they should fight Darkseid if we did a reboot, if we wiped the board, Kate? No Jesse Eisenberg. I'm gonna say something really unpopular. I like Jesse Eisenberg as Luthor. He wasn't Luthor. He wasn't Lex, and I will never try to defend that he is in fact Lex. But I did actually like his presentation of the character, especially in the extended edition of BVS. But that's just me. Oh, I know you disagree. Everyone disagrees with me on that. No one agrees with me on that, and that's okay. This is the internet. We can all disagree here. Wait, no, hang on. This is the internet, so we all have to rant and scream at each other and shout epitaphs. Sorry, I forgot about that. Blah... But no, seriously, though, I stand by my statement. I liked him. Now, Jesse Eisenberg would be a great Riddler. Basically, just the way he played him in BVS as Luthor. And just playing Riddler. I mean, God, he's almost got the hair even, doesn't he? He's even got that sort of... I'm actually a lot smarter than I put myself off to be thing. Because if you paid attention, especially, again, during the director's cut, if you paid attention, the character that is called Lex in BVS was pretty smart. And was constantly thinking his way around just about everyone around him. And that just screams Riddler to me. Especially since he's constantly like, yep, I'm just a little weird, creepy guy. There's no reason to look at me. I'm not someone you need to pay attention to. Oh, wow, yeah, this guy. Ooh. Yeah, no, Riddler, duh. And I agree, let's not add the Joker at all. No, I'm serious. I would not have the Joker be in this new DCCU, or DCC, no, that's right, DCCU. That being said, I wouldn't have him be in Phase 1, like lead up to the Justice League one. I would consider it going on, but he's absolutely not in the initial stuff. My knee-jerk thought, make the Joker part of the backstory implication of Batman's own story. Which is funny, because they actually did that, if you're paying attention. You remember the armor? Ha ha ha, They already implied the Joker actually surprisingly well in that film, so just little stuff like that. Don't actually have the Joker be on camera, though. Or yeah, mention him in passing. Just something like that. There's no need to actually have the Joker in this. If anything, I would do a lead up to the Joker for a Batman solo standalone. Yeah, or a Joker flashback. I don't think I'd do that personally, at least not early on. But yeah, Robin's outfit was a perfect hint to the Joker. Anybody who knows anything about that saw that and was like, "Yep, that's horrible." No Nightwing movie. Sorry, Malachor. Nobody likes Nightwing. I'm kidding. Nightwing is actually my personal favorite Joker. Or Robin. Wow. That's funny because in the DCAU he became a Joker briefly, but anyways. Solomon Grundy as a side villain. Oh, that's... Oh, Pyman just gave me an interesting idea. Hear me out. So let's go back to the original timeline where we're acknowledging the previous films as canon. Let's go ahead and bring back, I can't remember his name, the actor who played the Joker in Suicide Squad, right? And let's have him come back and be like, I'm the Joker. Woo. But he's not. He's not actually the Joker. He's a copycat. And the real Joker is presumed dead, and has been presumed dead for some time. Jared Leto, thank you. Jared Leto's an actor I don't know if I have an opinion on, because he's a very strange actor. But anyways, basically build into it, based on what we've already seen, that, Jason, Todd, basically built it in that Todd died killing Joker, right? The original Joker, the real Joker. And have that be kind of a thing in the background there, and have there be these copycat Jokers. And if I'm being honest, I kind of like the idea of building up to the idea that the original Joker actually did survive and is so much more horrifying than any of these copycats. Like, he is a completely no-nonsense horror monstrosity in the background who is kind of like we could build up to him being the main villain of his own film, kind of a thing. I kind of like that idea. I don't know, I'd have to workshop that a bit. Yeah, exactly. Like, let Leto be the founder of the Joker gang, like was in Batman Beyond, for example. But not actually be the Joker. Joaquin Phoenix? I don't know enough to really give an impression of that yet. Hazardous. That's my honest answer there. Would I bring Todd back as the Red Hood? No. I don't think I would. I don't think I would. As much as there's some tempting stuff there, I don't like the idea of bringing Todd back in general. Death is already way too intangible of a thing when it comes to DCU, so... no, I have not, Hazardous. I didn't know we actually had a clip at this point. Booster Gold? Yeah, I'm down with that. I'd save that kind of thing for Phase 2, though. The Lazarus Pit? I'd probably not have the Lazarus Pit be in the continuity. Again, we're kind of cherry-picking anyways, right? That's how this concept works. So I think most of the things that are either more out there or more death-skippy are things that I would probably not have be in the films, be in the DCCU. It's bad enough that Superman already died and came back. You notice I'm not adding a spoiler warning to that statement because Superman always dies and comes back. That's not a spoiler at this point. It's like Optimus Prime. It's all he does is dies and come back. I'm not sure if I would have Ra's or not. I'm really not. I like the idea of Ra's al Ghul, but without the actual pit, without the attempt at being Vandal Savage, I agree, Pyman. I would have Oracle already be a character. It would be difficult to do because they never even referenced Oracle prior to this, but I would have Oracle be someone who is part of the Bat family. Now, I haven't mentioned the Green Lantern yet. So Lantern was actually in, Justice League. There was a Lantern in Justice League. A Lantern actually died fighting Steppenwolf, if you remember, and the ring flew off. Yeah, I know it's pronounced Rij Al Ghul. I don't care. I'm sorry. So, what would I do with the lantern? See, the problem is, first we'd have to get Ryan Reynolds. I mean, that's just an obvious thing, right? And then I think we'll have him fight, like, rather than making the ultimate villain of the Green Lantern Corps be, you know, like a giant evil bug thing that infests the very nature of concepts of reality, I think we make it a giant cloud. Clouds are terrifying, you know? Just super terrifying. I've actually seen that movie, by the way. Okay, no. I gotta be honest, I'm not sure what I would do with Lantern. It is, in my opinion, that Lantern is more difficult to write for than most of the others because of the extremely sci-fi, loose sci-fi nature of the Lantern Corps in general. That being said, I mean, they made Guardians of the Galaxy work, right? Now, granted, the way that they made Guardians of the Galaxy work was they went ahead and made it a comedy. You know, that was a lighthearted, just romp kind of a thing. So, I don't want to do that with Lantern, to be blunt. Oh, I would absolutely make John the Green. John's my favorite Green Lantern, consequently. I think it's John. Hang on. It's the one from the DCAU. That's my favorite Lantern. I'm pretty sure that's John. Let me double check that. Green Lantern. Ah, I can spell. Yeah, that's him. John Stewart. I'm right. So I would make it John Stewart. That's just opinion, because I like that. And I've always liked John as a character. Yeah, you mentioned that, Nerman. I'm not sure what I think of the buddy cop idea. Would I do Slade? Probably not, honestly. John Stewart. It's actually spelled differently, Hazardous, believe it or not. And Reggie Brock's asking, how many other lanterns would we bring up? In, like, a Phase 1 thing, I would only have one lantern. I would reference the Corps. I would probably have Sinestro be there. I'm not sure what I would do with him. And I would reference the other spectrums, the other things, but I don't think I would actually go into the full depth of the Guardian Corps and the mess that is. If we did a Green Lantern solo movie, which actually, if I'm being 100% honest, I think I would couch not doing. But if we do go ahead and do a Green Lantern solo movie, gosh. I like the idea of the villain being Guy. The villain. I gotta put that in quotes because he's not actually a full-on villain, right? So I know I just said I wouldn't introduce the other rings, but I'd have Guy with red. I'd have Guy with red. I'd have John green. I think I'd actually go ahead and have Sinestro yellow. I wouldn't have Sinestro be the villain, though. I would kind of go with the direction of Sinestro where he's more like another, you know, kind of an anti-hero or another path, a Riku kind of a character, right? Just 'cause we're talking about Kingdom Hearts recently. We're still talking about this. And the red... Not Atrocitus, although Atrocitus seems kind of thing. But yeah, I would have Sinestro be there, but I wouldn't have him be a villain. In fact, to be honest, I don't think I'd ever have him be a villain. Just my take on that. But I would definitely have him be, you know, an anti-hero. A Punisher type character is actually probably the direction I'd go with Sinestro. So he is still, you know, trying to help, trying to do good. He's just doing it in his own completely rogue style. Yeah, Ronin type. That's a good way to put that, Hazardous. And they're after Guy because Guy, something horrible has happened to Guy. I don't know, we could come up with something. And Guy is just wrecking face in this area. The overall point of the plot of the Green Lantern movie I have envisioned here would be that the Corps, that is to say the Guardians, to be more specific, the Guardians are deliberately and knowingly posing the different cores against each other. For whatever reason. I'd have to think up a reason that actually makes sense, and I can't think of one right now. And that would be like the basic reveal at the end of the film, and they're like, okay, this is bullcrap. And I would probably have Flash be the main secondary other character in a Green Lantern film. I mean, Guy's always been kind of a dick, Nerdman, so I'm kind of with you on that. I don't know, Green Lantern would be the hardest for me to write. I mean that sincerely. It would be very difficult, but I think that's the direction I'd go with that. Flash would be there, you know, Guy would be involved in this. There would be antagonism. Oh, Barry or Wally. I don't remember which one is in the JLU. I don't remember which one's in the films. I mean, if we're acknowledging continuity, which is the idea. Look that up real quick. I want to say it's Barry, but I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah, it's Barry. Okay, so yeah, Barry. We're still in the first question. It would... I haven't talked about Cyborg either. I don't know what I'd want to do with Cyborg. I really don't. I haven't talked about Wonder Woman either. Honestly, I know this sounds strange, but I know exactly what I want to do with Wonder Woman. I'd want to do the first half of the Wonder Woman movie, and then have the second half continue of the thread that the first half continued. Basically, do the Wonder Woman movie the way I wanted it to happen. Lords of Order? No, I don't think I would. Man, darn. I don't think I would. My hesitance in making Green Lantern a fun movie is that's what they try to do with the last Green Lantern movie. And if I'm being honest, I want to kind of distance myself a little bit from the last Green Lantern movie. Because I'm sure there are people who like the last Green Lantern movie, but it has left a stain on the name that has continued to the point where they still haven't done another one. You know? Actually, one of the things I've always loved the idea of is the Penguin being like a large-scale villain for Bruce, not Bats. I've talked about that many times, actually. In fact, before The Dark Knight Rises came out, and they were still talking about who the villain for that one would be, my biggest pick was Penguin. You know, the cold fish, right? The financial baron who is basically just as rich as Bruce and just as good at him financially, who has none of the morality holding him back. I would remove Black Mask from existence, because he's horrible. Off my screen. There we go. Yeah, like basically, yeah, the mob boss Penguin, except most of his stuff is above board. In fact, if I'm being 100% blunt, I would probably write Penguin in a similar way to how I envision the Kingpin being. You know? That's true, Hazardous. We have to have a Deadpool cameo. Do I feel superhero movies have become tired? Well, no, but I'm the wrong person to ask that. I don't get tired of something that I feel is still good, you know? I'm not tired of Pokemon games. I'm not tired of Kingdom Hearts games. I'm not tired of... I wasn't tired of WoW. I had to adjust that statement. I'm not tired of superhero movies. I've already bought tickets for Captain Marvel. I'm looking forward to Endgame, you know. That's kind of what I was thinking, Regid Brock. The only problem is that if we're going to do a film like that, it would have to be almost like a side film. I think we could do that, though. But if we were going to do that, I would basically have the film focus on the Penguin. Whoever plays the Penguin would actually be the main character of the film. And the film would follow his perspective, and Affleck would show up periodically to be the antagonist to Penguin's story. That's how I would do that. So I have to do a Nightwing movie? Okay. So first I have him show up, and he's like... And then he says, F Batman! And there you go. Boom. Sold. What about things I don't care for? I don't know how to answer that. What's something that I don't care? I guess there's the Twilight movies, but I still don't think vampires are overdone. I suppose zombies is a good example. Zombies, I think, I'm tired of zombie stuff. I still like Resident Evil 2, though. So, no, I'm the wrong person to ask that, Micromano. Like, I do eventually get tired of stuff, but it takes a while. It takes a while for me to actually get tired of something. And I swear I answered you, Prog. In fact, I've been answering you. Am I tired of AC games? No. No, I talked about that during, I believe, my Rogue rumination. Because I know a lot of people are like, enough with Assassin's Creed. I'm not in that group. The first Assassin's Creed game that I bowed out of was Syndicate, or excuse me, no, that's Unity, and that was actually for unrelated reasons. The first Assassin's Creed game I've actively disliked was Odyssey. Game of Thrones. I mean, I don't care. Well, I don't know what to do with Nightwing. That's the true answer to that. I really don't know what to do with Nightwing, because I only know one good Nightwing story off the top of my head, and I don't even remember which one it was. I only remember one scene from it, and it was a comic, obviously. And it's a scene where Bruce is like, oh, God, he opens up to Nightwing. And then they're sitting in the car, and Nightwing says, so, do you want me to tell me that I figured it out before you tell me everything that's happened? And Bruce just kind of grins at him. I don't know which story that was, but it was actually a pretty good story. But no, yeah, while we're on the subject, I would also have a TV show that has more continuity with the movies. Was that Hush? That wouldn't surprise me, because I read all of Hush. Because I actually liked Hush. I like the idea of doing TV shows that are actually part of the continuity of the movies, basically. Signing on actors who are going to make appearances in the shows, and signing on the TV actors who are going to make appearances in the films. I would have Nightwing be Batman. Hear me out. Hear me out. I don't mean literally Batman, but a Batman-style story. Nightwing has taken his city. I forget which city is. I know he's claimed a city in the comics, but Nightwing has basically claimed a city and is effectively the Batman for that city. And he's got his own Bat network, his own Nightwing network, and his own Nightwing area. And I would just have the show be about him trying to clean up this city. Now, a lot of the Batman stories all follow the same general arc. The Batman sacrificed Bloodhaven. Thank you. So Batman sacrificed himself. And crime continues despite years of sacrifice. It wasn't worth it. I would go the total opposite direction of that. I would have it be that Nightwing is actually succeeding. That his efforts across the extension of this show is actually making Bloodhaven a legitimately better place as a consequence. And I would have that follow through and be significant for some reason in whatever movies happen to be connected to that. Dolatrons. You're just throwing out random stuff at this point, Baron. My God. I've been watching every single thing you mentioned. Dolatrons? Really? But yeah, we've been talking about the long. Let's move on to the next question. This would be a difficult question. That's why I do these here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So speaking of movie continuity questions and long-term stuff like that, the next question would be. Lobo would not be in it at all. Absolutely not. No. Lobo was a joke to start with. Like, he was a literal joke, and then they just kind of ran with it. That's true, Colgrim. We could make several of the first season villains be copycats. Copycats of Bats, not of Nightwing. And Nightwing himself, as trying to get out of Bruce's shadow, is constantly trying to be like, no, this is how I do things. We would also have to, and I'd have to figure out how, but Nightwing would also have to have a different operation mentality, a different modus operandi from Bats. So we'd have to figure out a way that he differs in the way he acts, because that would be important, not just for him varying himself from the original, but to show the contrast between him and the copycats. I don't know what that would be. We'd have to sit and think about that. So, assume that you are now the mainliner of the MCU. I get these questions a lot. And assume that it is now after Endgame, okay? So, Endgame has come and gone, and is done. And now, within the... hang on. Okay, so I was reading the whole question here to understand what the point of the question is. I'll just read the question out loud to you guys. Hi, Hourglass. So, it's after Endgame. You are now in charge of the MCU. You have to make some movies. These movies have to be within budgetary reasonability. You know, you can't be super crazy with it. You have to make the movies already in production. Shrug. I suppose I do, Mike Romano. And you have to follow the themes and tone of the MCU. You can't be all dark, edgy, and you can't do the X-Men. So, what do you do? Where do you go? Now, obviously, Spider-Man's already kind of done and done, so we can just kind of ignore that one for the moment. We still have Black Panther 2 to consider, and then we have... I'm not even sure what else, honestly. So where would you go with the MCU post-Endgame? I guess we have Guardians of the... So we have Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we have Black Panther 2, and then the rest is just a blank slate, effectively. Right, first we have to make a Chinese movie to satisfy the Chinese markets. There we go. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Guardians 3. I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. That's way too political. Sadly. So... Fantastic Four is something we could theoretically do. Squirrel... No. No, Mike ABC. Does it have to be approved by Tencent? The Chinese movie? Yeah. That's not a joke. Adam Warlock. That's true. They did kind of do a tiny hint at Adam Warlock. We have a lot of threads we could go into, really. Like, Colgrim mentioned expanding Doctor Strange, and I think I agree with that, actually. So one of the ideas I had a while ago, actually, I think I talked about this on stream at one point. I liked the idea of basically having the consequences of Endgame, whatever the heck they are, lead to the creation of mutants. Like, mutants are now a thing. Because if you're paying attention to the lore, and I don't blame you if you don't, because the show wasn't that great, Inhumans are not mutants. Like fundamentally. The way they're presenting the humans in the MCU is the Inhumans are just their own little thing over there in a corner, right? And have been there for, millennia and all that fun stuff. Yeah, the Inhumans are basically aliens, exactly. So instead have something mutants into existence. The Clone Saga. Oh god, the Clone Saga. I mean, the Clone Saga was almost great. A criminal organization as the main villain, like AIM. I mean, they did kind of tinker with that a bunch. So, yeah. Honestly, if I'm being completely blunt, I thought the Clone Saga was good right up until it became absolutely awful. And I have since read the makings of and the behind-the-scenes of that, and so I know that that was not actually the decision of the writers. In fact, it was a literal executive decision to push back the natural and logical conclusion of the Clone Wars, or excuse me, of the Clone Wars, of the Clone Saga. And then that happened again. And then it happened a third time. Yeah. So you mentioned the Fantastic Four. I don't... Okay. I don't like the Fantastic Four. Let me start with that. I never have. Comics or movies. But let's assume for a moment that we have Fantastic Four somehow. And Tyonis is actually all of the Fantastic Four in one bundle. So he's got, he's made of rock, he can flex, he's on fire, and he can turn invisible. So there's like invisible heat, and he can stretch the invisible heat, and he's really durable because he's made of rock. No, they're fantastic, Chuluto. It's okay, I understand. The two words are very similar. Thank you, Tyonis. As ever, I much appreciate those subs. Would you like to put that towards anything in particular? But if we had to introduce the Fantastic Four, I gotta be honest, I like the idea more that Reed is a bad guy. Because if you've read the comics, he is a bad guy. He is a horrible, horrible person. And I would probably go in the direction of having him effectively be a form of a villain in his own right. But a villain who isn't like... isn't the Ironmonger. Instead, a villain who basically ends up still maintaining a hold on his political power by the end of the films. You know what I mean? A long-term kind of a threat. And I just lost chat. That's great. Did I lose connection? Are we live? Yeah, I'll wait to see if I see any Kefkas in chat. Might have to reboot. Okay, there we go. So, hang on, let me... So the last thing I saw was that the Fantastic Four are awesome. I also have to be blunt. I don't like the way Doom has ever been presented. Just to be honest about that. We don't have to, Silder. Ah, you got it, Tyonis. Thank you. Whoops, wrong button. Wrong thing. Just wrong everything today. Here we go. I don't think anyone likes Dune, though. How many of you guys... Okay, so Sildeer just said something interesting. Alright, I'm going to spoil Iron Man 3 here. On the off chance you have never seen Iron Man 3 and don't want to be spoiled for it, please mute or leave or something, okay? You with me? I liked what Iron Man 3 did with the Mandarin. Go ahead. It's okay. I understand. I really do. But I think I liked it best because it didn't follow the comics directly and decided to take an idea and go in a new direction with it. And a direction that I actually liked. I suppose I should... Go ahead. I really do understand. I understand you guys not liking me for that. I understand you guys hating me for that. It's okay. I really do get it. I'm not actually antagonistic. I'm not violent against it. I'm not trying to defend it. I know you can't see chat, Nerdman. You won't be able to see chat until the plugin finishes rebooting. That's what always happens. Whenever I have to reboot the plugin, it takes a few minutes. Now, that being said, I do have to admit, I actually just recently went through Iron Man 3 again. And I think that What's-Her-Face, I can't think of her name right now, should have been the Mandarin instead of What's His Face. Like, I firmly think that. But ignoring that, I like the idea of the Mandarin being a puppet that they used specifically to do something different with it. Because the whole thematic point was there. One of the biggest thematic points of Iron Man 3 was that there's the self that... the value of anonymity, basically. The strength and power of being someone that isn't right up there in your face and is constantly being distracted. There was a constant thematic undercurrent throughout all of Iron Man 3. That was a retcon, Justin. I actually looked into that. That was basically done as a direct response to public response. So, anyways, and so I liked that idea and that theme, and they used the Mandarin to tie into that. Have the big, obvious, hey, look at here, you'll never see me coming. You know, that was just, blah. And then the actual person is over here getting government contracts, and basically nobody even heard about him. In fact, the only reason that that worked at all, or rather didn't work at all, was because of the fact that he insisted on being an idiot. Exactly. As Bragwin points out, Tony's desire to be the center of attention and the center of the thing backfires really hard on him, and he ends up having to learn on his own right the power of anonymity, and actually manages to make himself, he actually manages to succeed quite a bit when he doesn't show up in a big flashy suit and just like, ah, I'm here, right? I can also point out that Yeah, I know, right, Mandartin? I can also point out that they did kind of a similar thing with War Machine. You know, Iron Patriot, come on. Anyways, my point being, my overall point is that they didn't follow the comics. And it is my opinion that following the comics or not following the comics for its own sake is neither of those are a good thing. But if you can do one or the other and do it for a significant narrative purpose, then that's okay. This leads me to the Fantastic Four. I would make Reed Doom. Not obviously. Not openly, but the guy who was in charge of Latveria, the guy who wears the mask, I would make that Reed Richards. Because if you pay attention to Reed Richards and the way he is portrayed in the comics, he is Doctor Doom in almost every way. Just the way he presents himself, the way he manipulates, the way he controls, the way he's incredibly evil, the way he doesn't give a crap about anything except for results, etc., etc. Yeah, basically the Illuminati Reed. That's exactly what I'd do with that. Now, I would probably still have Victor be a character. Just Victor would not be Doom. Make sense? Now, I have to admit, and I know this fully, this would make people upset. It's already making people upset in chat. I mean, Irongrad just said I have to die. I mean, good lord, man. That's debatable, Malachor, but yeah, no, I like the idea of having a film of I know you don't mean it, Irongrad, of having a film where Victor is still a sorcerer. Victor is still a character, but he is not Doom. He is not Doctor Doom. That's Reed. And I want the way I would want to present that would take some time and thought and effort. But the way I want to go with that is I want Reed to be someone who's fair enough, Mandartin. Why not create new characters? Well, okay. That's a separate question. Can I come back to that? Yeah, Maya, that's her name, Nerdman. I couldn't think of her damn name. And yes, I know. Like I said, I just did the rumination on Iron Man 3. But I still think Maya would have been a better Mandarin than Bob. What I would want to do is I would want to sit down and think, what do I want to do narratively, thematically, with a Fantastic Four film? Now, just off the top of my head, just stuff that immediately comes to mind, I want the idea of showing consequence. Have the Fantastic Four movie be a direct consequence of Endgame. Be a direct consequence of and whatever happened in Endgame, right? I would also then try to have I like the idea, but I'd have to workshop this. I'd have to massage this a bit. I like the idea that Reed is someone who's basically always been a player on, let's call it the corporate landscape. You know, Reed Enterprises is actually a fairly large company, which has a fairly large amount of resources at its disposal. And I would have him be someone who was personally affected by the decimation, right? And the consequences of whatever the heck happens in Endgame. And have him, you know, having been thinking about this and working on this idea for some time, probably go ahead and say that Stark Industries, or Stark Tech, or whatever the heck it's actually called, actually reached out to Reed Industries at some point in the backstory, and the two have basically been kind of doing coordinating, let's call it what it is, anti-alien tech for some time, okay? Probably not, Baron. And then Reed Industries, yeah, like Susan Storm maybe dying during the decimation, you know, maybe staying dead. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't want to upset things too much. I already want Reed to be Doom. But have this kind of thing where they have basically this build into the backstory that they have been working since like Avengers 1 or Avengers 2 at the very latest on building up this tech and building up these resources and building up this presentation. And then Black Panther happened, right? Black Panther changed the board. I would have it so that Wakanda was willing to work with Stark, but no one else, right? Now, this is actually kind of relevant. Jesus, psychotic. This is actually relevant because the idea here is that Wakanda's megatech has obviously already been an influence on Stark personally. I mean, he's got the nanosuit, right? However, I would have them be so limited in who they're willing to share that tech with that they're only willing to share it with Stark personally, not even Stark Industries. This would, of course, serve to be like the third or fourth wedge between Stark and Reed. And then, of course, the decimation happens, horrible stuff happens. Basically, yeah, that's yeah, Eisermaster already sees where I'm going with this. How would have Reed Richards be the kind of person who is a person who is a firefighter who makes fires to put them out to prove that he's right? He is someone that firmly thinks that he is on the right side of things here, and that he actually really does believe this. I just realized I'm kind of describing Thanos, but you know what I mean. Someone who is, let's say, Stark, with basically Stark's morality removed, just erased from the character. So, and when I say Stark, I don't mean like the kind of, charming jackass. No. I mean like have him be a brilliant, driven person who actively wants to try and, control the board for its own good. Just, again, remove the morality, remove the personability, remove the caring and, frankly, love that Stark has to help make him not a monster. And that, with all that removed, that's how I would portray Reed Richards. Yeah, like an inverse of Stark. Yeah, I'm just being heretical. I want to make Reed Richards Doctor Doom. A Templar. Yeah, actually, honestly, yeah, a Templar. Make Reed Richards like the ideal Templar. Like straight up Juno, right? Now, and so this is where he basically takes on the persona of Doom. I would never name him Doom directly. That's important. We don't need to actually have him call him Dr. Doom. We don't need to do a cute wink at the camera moment. We just have him basically take the place of the person who Dr. Doom is, effectively. Now, I would also... So, again, Victor's still a character. Susan, Johnny, and... Oh god, I can't think of his name. I know he's the Thing, but I can't think of his name. Ben! Thank you. Ben Grimm. That's it. So, Susan, Johnny, and Ben, I would have... And Victor... Susan, Johnny, Ben, and Victor is effectively who I would probably make the actual Fantastic Four. That being said, I'm not sure where I would go with that storyline. Like I said, this is something that I would have to spend some really long time sitting down and thinking about some ideas and chopping some ideas out. That's a good question, Sildear, and I'd have to decide, because the idea would be that Reed would effectively be the villain of the first Fantastic Four film. The problem is, no, I take that back. I take that back. I don't want Reed to be the villain of the first Fantastic Four film. I want Reed to be the arc villain. I want Reed to be the Thanos of Fantastic Four, if you follow me. So, I would probably have Reed still be part of the team, still be part of, of the Fantastic Four, but I would have, signs, right? Arcs, or not arcs, cracks showing throughout the course of the film that Reed is actually basically on the other side of the equation. And I would need an actor who would be willing to play someone who is intense without playing someone who is just ludicrous, right? Because that's how I picture this Reed. Someone who is very intense. Someone who is very just needle focused. This is what needs to happen. This is where we need to go with this. But it's actually more difficult to play intense than it sounds. Most actors just kind of shout a lot. It needs to be very focused. It needs to be kind of, this is what needs to happen. Excuse me, if I could just move this here. No, you're not listening to me, Susan. Would I redo the Green Goblin in the MCU? No. No. I would do Osborn, but I wouldn't do Goblin. Yeah, Liam Neeson. That's a good pick. I already like that. Liam Neeson to be Reed. I'm serious. Would I redo Venom? No. Oh, that's true. Hank Pym is kind of what this character sounds like. I kind of like that. And I like that idea, Doctor Who, that Reed basically loses Susan to Victor. Carnage? I mean, that's just repeating the Mandarin thing, Malachor. Not a bad idea, admittedly, because I like the Mandarin thing. But I think if I was to do the Green Goblin at all as the Green Goblin, it would be way less hokey, but also, I don't know. Actually, hang on. Why not have the Green Goblin... So first of all, let's never name it that on camera. Let's never actually call it the Green Goblin. But let's basically make it let's call it a copycat of the Iron Man suit that Osborn Corps has made as their own military production operation. You know, the suit, the flight wings thing, the ranged weaponry. It's not as good as the Iron Man suit, because of course it isn't, because it's made to be mass-produced, right? Mass-produced. And yeah, I like the idea of making Victor, going back to the Fantastic Four for a second, I like the idea of making Victor like the inverse of Reed. Basically, Victor is someone who is awkward, but very intelligent, you know, very focused, probably adorkable, but someone who also effectively is very, very intelligent. I mean, is Victor, come on. And someone who is, you know, capable of thinking his way and planning his way through. Basically, I would make Victor I don't want to call him the guy in the chair so much as like the team tactician and strategist, right? The person who actually helps Fantastic Four be able to operate as well as they do. The commander, if you will. And he's really good at that. He's okay, do this, move this, and, you know. And I think that, I'm not sure I would even give Victor any powers at all. Just have him be someone who was a friend of Reed, who was a friend of Susan, and works that way. And as Bragwin pointed out, make Victor have a strong sense of morality underneath all of it, to show the inverse of him to Reed. Reed is like, we must save the people, but is willing to do basically anything to make that happen. Victor is, we must save the people the right way, because otherwise what's the point? You know, the different sides of the coin kind of a thing. Showing Reed in contrast to Victor would be important to me, in other words. I agree. Osborn should not be a villain at the start. I mean, and when I say a villain, obviously he's a corporate mogul. Of course he's a sociopath. No, I mean that he should be someone who is not, you know, and then I will poison the water supply. You know, not do that. Carnage. I don't want to think about Carnage. That's a whole other thing. Because the problem is Carnage. What the hell do you do with Carnage, right? Would Adrian Toomes show up again? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'll be a little bit disappointed when Toomes doesn't show up in Far From Home. Doc Ock, I mean, yeah, exactly, Hourglass. I already like the idea of making Doc Ock not a villain. Spider-Man game. Excuse me. But, I mean that sincerely. Octavius, as a non-villain character, as a neutral character, or as basically someone who is a, I hesitate to use the word co-worker with Spider-Man, actually appeals to me a lot. But, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure what I would do with Spider-Man at this point. Because we have to go with the Holland Spidey, right? And he's already established as a character. You know, he's got his own thing going on. They've got... That's true, she was a good Doc Ock from what I understand. I still haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse. I agree, Dakota. See, I don't like the idea of doing Green Goblin or Hobgoblin in any way that's typical. Like, I know that sounds like a horrible thing to say. I'm not trying to be like trendy or hipster or whatever. But my point being, both the Hobgoblin and the Green Goblin thing have not only been done to death, but in my opinion, it's difficult to do that kind of a thing seriously. I have only to point to Spider-Man 1 to prove my point. I mean, granted, that was in the 90s. It was a different era of filmmaking in general. But look at how... I mean, that was a good actor playing Green Goblin, too. And it was still just... What? So yeah, I actually agree with Colgrim. As much as there's some interesting stuff with Spidey, I would try to keep Spidey low tier. You know, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I would try to keep him down here. That's just my opinion, because if I'm being honest, a Phase 4 of the MCU, which is still what this overall question is about, would probably be going pretty high tier. Like, we're introducing the Fantastic Four, would probably be introducing mutants in some way. We've already got Guardians doing its thing in space. We've got Black Panther 2, which is going to be acknowledging Wakanda's now new presence in the world, and a world that's basically just been jumped forward a century, technologically speaking. Basically everything at this point is fairly high tier. We need at least something that is still focused down at the ground level, and I think Spider-Man's a good fit for that, personally. That's what I mentioned earlier, Bragwin. I'm guessing you were AFK when I said that. Yeah, exactly, Colgrim. Have a down-to-earth Spidey. He's fighting whoever. Now, Kingpin's still alive, right? In the Daredevil show? Nah, I don't want to go with Kingpin. I don't want to go with Kingpin. What would I do with Spidey? Yeah, I know, right, Ice Tray? Honestly, I think I feel I've already said what I want to do with Spidey. I want him not only be down tier, I want Osborn to be involved. I want Oscorp involved. I'm not sure. I'm being honest. Because I'm not sure where I would go with Spider-Man. Hellblazer? I don't know enough about Hellblazer to even comment on that, to be completely honest. I mean, bringing Kurt in, as weird as this may sound, I actually liked Connors in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. It's just they never really used him. That was the only downside. Like, he was always there in the background, ready to go, and they never actually did anything with it. He wanted to be an Avenger. No, I get it, Blue Wolf. I get it. Honestly, if we could keep Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, I'd kind of want to segue him into the MCU. Not just the TV stuff. Like, I really like the idea of... Kingpin's a great villain in general, in my opinion. And I feel like there's a lot they could do with him. How could that go wrong? Oh my god, Brogue. Constantine? No. Also, I would, if I could, I would bring Hammer back. Justin Hammer. I'm not actually kidding about that. First of all, because I love his actor. I really do. Legitimately love his actor. And second of all, because I personally think that Hammer should have been in several things since then and hasn't been. And I think that was a mistake. Just my opinion on that one. Well, again, if we were going to do the Green Goblin, like I said earlier, I would never name it that on camera. Which actually, if you pay attention, they do that a lot in the MCU. They don't actually name, characters by their, Whiplash or whatever. But yeah, bring back Sam Rockwell as Hammer. Make Hammer... How would I do Hammer? I can think of two ways to do Hammer. The first is that he's basically someone who is, effectively supplying villains with their hardware and tech and making money off of it, and is effectively still the bungler, still the pathetic guy in the shadow of Stark Industries and Reed Tech, or Stark Tech and Reed, whatever, you know what I mean? And basically make him like a lighter thing, like a lighter tone underneath whatever's going on. Or basically everything I just said, except Hammer is actually doing this effectively on purpose as part of a long-term goal to, let's call it, drum up business. So in other words, he plays the fool because he's good at it, but there is an overall plan here. But it's not some big Machiavellian plot. It's just he is more or less deliberately saying, okay, you take this, you take this, you take this, and each of you keep fighting against each other, right? I mean, it's good. It's good business. The NRA. Oh my god. Yeah, Stark would be like, "What are you doing?" And Reed would be like, "I like the idea of Hammer being part of the Fantastic Four film, honestly, and effectively, Hammer Industries, or whatever it's actually called, is actually, let's call it, being assisted by and manipulated by Reed Industries in order to keep things going for both of their respective purposes." And yeah, I remember, isn't Tombstone dead at this point? Oh no, you mean the other Tombstone. Right, right. That I don't know. Anyways, I should probably move on. I do have Kingdom Hearts 3 to play today. Good lord. Let's move on to the next question, guys. I only got one more. I only got one more. Two more things to talk about total. How many of you guys like Assassin's Creed? Anybody? Does anybody like Assassin's Creed? I did a whole lore run on it. Didn't do all the games. We're missing 2. Where's the frickin' thing? There it is. Current topic. It's way down here. So, you know, I call this Templar Creed. The overall question here is... Dramatic pause. Okay, to answer you in brief, Sile here, making new characters is certainly something you can do. It's also something they have done, effectively. They have taken characters, basically a character's name, and made a whole new character with it. But for the most part, the reason you don't make new characters is because the entire point of this is to try and pull from an existing audience. Now, segueing into new characters within that can work, but they've never really done that before. And honestly, the part of the problem is there's such an overwhelmingly huge bulk of characters to pull from amongst comics that any character you invent has already been done. And, you know, people go like, "Oh, it's a such and such." Well, no, he's called this other thing. Yeah, but he does this and this and this. Well, yeah, that's true. Well, then he's such and such. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that shouldn't happen, but at this point, if one was to try and make their own characters, either within an existing comic book's verse or in a new comic book verse, that's going to be a very risky venture. Just ask... I can't think of their names all of a sudden. A comic book company back in the 80s and 90s did exactly that, and I can't even think of their name. But yeah, it is a risky venture. It's something that could work. Absolutely could work. It's just, hi, plan. Anyway, so here's the other question. Sorry, Assassin's Creed related. You have been invited by Ubisoft to create a new game all about the Templars. I think it was Image, yeah. You can choose a time period, historical figures, and whatever. So the core question here is, you're making a Templar's Creed. How do you make this game different in core game mechanics and story than a typical Assassin's Creed game? Yeah, we'll see next time. I've heard those same rumors. But then again, I've heard rumors every day about Endgame, and that's not even a joke. My news feed is ugh. My newsfeed is almost nothing but Endgame some days. It's actually really irritating. I don't even click any of those things. It's true. We can make it a mobile game. We can make it filled with loot boxes.
Your dedication will be rewarded.
We can make it have dedication, which is rewarded. Well, thank you, if and but. I do appreciate the donation. I will consider doing that once Season 2 is done. We'll see. I'll get there. I'll get there. So, Nerdman says just make it a strategy game. Actually, funnily enough, I see Max Time also said make management a core mechanic. But thank you, If and Bud, very, very much. I kind of agree with both of you. I like the idea of... So, in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Revelations, and I guess 3 and 4 in Rogue, they kind of added, like, basically a little side mini-game thing, right? Don't make that... Rebellion? Don't make it like a side... Oh, Assassin's Creed Rebellion. Don't make it like a side minigame thing. Make it an actual game. Give it depth. Give it layers. Give it complexity. Basically make that a core game mechanic rather than a mini game on the side, right? Yeah, I agree that the gameplay should work differently. That's just my opinion. Well, no, I agree, Max Time. Kind of. There is a blend between management and strategy, and I'm not even talking about the Anyo series. Like there are games where there is a strategy to managing, to a management style sim. I don't know if I'd have police mechanics. Maybe policing mechanics. Eingrad's idea is interesting. I'm seeing a lot of ideas here, actually. Strategy game, management game, RTS game, our full RPG, point-and-click adventure game. I did not play in, unfortunately. So, oh, okay, gotcha, Hazardous. Well, in that case, I do like the idea of policing mechanics, absolutely. I don't know where I'd want to set it story-wise. That's the trickiest thing for me. I mean, the sky's the limit on that one, really, right? The Templars have been around since 77,000 BC, or no, 75,000 BC, so... I do know Plague Inc. I've actually played Plague Inc. now. Never played DEFCON 1. Hi, Necrogangster. God, where would I want to set a Templar game in? Because, I mean, obviously I like the idea of Sengoku... Hang on. I need to look up a name. And I can't think of his name. Who came out on top from the Sengoku Jedi? The Sengoku period? I can't think of his damn name. And it's bothering me. He's the guy who wanted to invade Korea. No, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. That's him. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the guy who came out on top, basically, towards the end of the Sengoku period. Okay. I would have us basically playing Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi is full Templar, right?
Your dedication will be rewarded.
And this is what he says to his followers. This is the police game mechanics. Hang on. Let me jot that down here. What do we got? That's 4 for this. Just down here. There we go. Goodbye forever, Hazardous. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Vigilant. I do much appreciate that. And I'm glad that at least some people are showing interest in that. I like the idea that... Because think about it this way. First of all, let me just go ahead and say I like the idea that the Templars are not all... and then I will boil the puppies and eat them. I like the idea of Templars being... I feel like I just said this with Reed Richards. But, being a Templar mentality. Now, you might be like, wasn't Tokugawa more significant? Yes. And so was Ieyasu, arguably. And so was Nobunaga. Have Hideyoshi be the Templar. Have Hideyoshi be the person who actually was the Templar trying to unify Japan. Not for power, like Nobunaga was. Not for political affluence and financial gain, like Ieyasu was. Because he was a Templar. Because he's someone who really does feel like this nation that he's in. And I would make it clear that he's a Templar in everything but name, but has no literal connection to the Templar Order. In other words, and this is important, in other words, the entire idea was that Hideyoshi is a Templar in thought, in philosophy, in mindset, without ever having even heard of the Templar Order, thus giving rise to the truth of the idea of what Hatham said. You know, the idea that we never needed to be, you know, we don't need old men to give us a creed. We just come up. We just are a natural byproduct of people to see the world as it is, right? That whole wonderful speech he gives. And so, yeah, exactly. As Turquoise says, no conversion, no indoctrination. Just someone who comes upon the notion of what a Templar means all on his own. And slowly crawls his way up through the ranks from incredibly humble beginnings under Nobunaga to basically be the Lord of Japan. And pay attention to some of the things that he did when he actually came into control. You know, establishing the caste system where everyone, if you're a peasant, you're a peasant. If you're a worker, you're a worker. Melting down the swords, unifying the people against an external enemy. Right? Doesn't all of that sound like a Templar to you? And yeah, as Palayan points out, I mean, the whole... Okay, there's differing accounts on this one, but the whole point of the Korean attack, which was actually the Chinese attack, for being blunt, was the creation of a Pan-Asiatic empire and a way to siphon off the massive military excess that Japan had in the wake of the Jedi. So... right? And then, of course... I'm not sure what I would do with Nobunaga, because someone compared Nobunaga to the Borgias, and I kind of agree with that. Like, I kind of like the idea of Nobunaga just being, power, everything will be mine. Yes, I know, Nerdman. I'm glad you like them, Tazara. Even though I'm not in uniform today, because I really wanted to show off the shirt. But yeah, no, have Nobunaga effectively be a form of an antagonist throughout this whole thing. As you're playing as Hideyoshi, like, I feel like there's a game that's done this before, but basically, imagine that you are constantly trying to make up for the mess that your own side is making in, like, the first half of the game or whatever. Or maybe just the whole of the game. Like, there's so much of your gameplay, so much of your little actions is spent, like, all right, Nobunaga just made a mess here. Right? Like, okay, I feel like SimCity did that a bit, you know. Here's a city that's been ruined by this circumstance. Fix it, you know. I'm glad you like it, Tazara. No, I have not, Ice Tray. Sorry. But yeah, exactly. He's got to clean up after Nobunaga's mess. Because, again, he really does believe in this concept. There's no Templar order. That's important. There's no Templar organization. He just really thinks this way. He feels this way, and he is functioning as a Templar as he goes through it, right? Oh, Tor Imperial Agent. That's a great example of what I'm talking about right there. So whether this is literally a management sim, or a strategy game, or an RPG, the same mentality could apply to all three. You know, here's... Okay, my lord Hideyoshi, we have come across a city. It's been ravaged and pillaged by local criminals. These bandits were put to the sword, but then, you know, the bandits, the troops themselves also destroyed and pillaged the town, and now these people are suffering and have no food. Please help us. And then zoom out a little bit. Okay, fix the town, you know, fix the area, that kind of a thing. That, if we were doing like a management sim, for example. Now, the no-kill idea. Just make a mod for Shogun 2. I mean, I like that idea. Especially if we're going with an RPG, Saldir, like a full-on RPG. Maybe if we're going a full-on RPG, that would just fit in nicely, and just bam, there you go. If we're going with something like a management civ or a strategy game, we could still have what would effectively become mini games, where you play as, you know, basically assassin-style gameplay, except you're not trying to kill. You're trying to parkour, listen in, watch, discover, etc., trying to spy and get information, etc. I sure hope so, Nerdman. It's the only Mount & Blade game that's ever looked interesting to me. What do you mean by doesn't care about the war between Templars and Assassins? Because I have an idea, but I don't remember his name. Not really Palayan, no. I've never been into the Mountain Blade series. I've tried several times. It's never worked for me. Oh, I can't think of his name. There was a rival to Temujin, to Genghis Khan, and I can't think of his name. I'm glancing through the wiki here, hoping I can find it. First time make it good, Nerman. I'm sorry. I'll answer you in a bit. But Temujin had a rival who almost won, if you remember. And I can't think of his damn name. Yeah, his half-brother. I was just thinking, like, if we were going with a Templar who doesn't care, that guy could be the character Doctor Who's referencing here. I just can't think of his damn name. The problem there would be gameplay, Necro. What gameplay mechanics do you add for spreading ideology? I'm not saying we can't, I'm just saying you have to think about that. Because there has to, again, it's a video game, you have to have something to do. So what do you do in order to spread your ideology? Oh, I'll tell you exactly how the assassins would get involved in the Sengoku Jidai, you know, you're playing as Hideyoshi thing. The assassin, so I would have the assassins basically push Korea in the way, specifically to try and break the power base of Hideyoshi. And yes, that means I basically just said that the assassins would effectively be the villains of this story. And I don't mean like the antagonists, I mean the villains, because that was just a mess for everyone. A lot of people died for nothing. But that sounds like the assassins, doesn't it? Like, oh god, we need to stop this might and force. Okay, we will reach out to our members, our leaders amongst the Korean people who we have influence with. Go! And then horribleness happens. I don't even know what that war is called. The Korean invasion of Japan. That went horribly. For everyone. I mean, I have to laugh, because it's just such a horrible period in history. The Imjin War. Okay. But no, I agree. As I've talked about during the lore one, we almost universally see the assassins portrayed as good guys, and the Templars portrayed as bad guys, with very few exceptions to that. To me, it makes perfect sense that... So what would happen, effectively, would be that the assassins tried to go out and assassinate Hideyoshi, and for whatever reason, they fail. And so they're like, okay, well, this war is coming, and this will crush the Chinese. And they become convinced that this is a Templar plot. And, hang on. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. That was from Ice Tray. I've never even heard of that game. So I can't answer you right now, Ice Tray, because I don't agree to play games I've never heard of. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this down here in the to be looked at later section. Ice Tray. Way of the Samurai 4. No. Save. There we go. Thank you very, very much, Ice Tray. As ever, I really appreciate your support and your continued support, especially right now. As I mentioned earlier today, I'm trying to get an apartment. It's expensive. I appreciate your support. Thank you, Ice Tray. I will look into this game. It's called Way of the Samurai 4. Like I said, I've never even heard of it, but I have it written down right here to look into in the future. And again, I just have to vet. Assuming it's cool, then yeah, I will absolutely consider putting that on the premiere runs. Thank you. Thank you. See you around, Justin. I lost my train of thought completely. What was I talking about? Something about assassins and going after Japan and it failing, and then them in desperate... Oh, right. Oh my god, Nimrod. Yeah, I know, Nerdman. I still don't care. I mean, why do you keep bringing that up? Now, you did mention the Revan thing. That's a separate topic, so I'm just going to shelve that for now. The War of the Benroken.
Zug zug.
I guess I've said all I needed to say. So, okay. So, I guess I can answer the Revan and Thrawn question really quick. Do I think Revan could have been Thrawn's tactical equal? What do you guys think of that question before I move forward? What do you guys think? Do you think Revan could be an equal to Thrawn? I'll never take a sip. What is that emote, by the way? Celestica. There we go. Oh, gotcha, Nerdman. That makes so much sense. Like I was saying, I thought I responded to that. See, here's the thing. Revan and Thrawn basically form a perfect combination if you really think about it, right? Like, if Revan and Thrawn joined forces, they win. You know, whatever they're going up against. That's insane. So I think, because I think they both basically, they're in the same, like, class, they're in the same category, but they both fill different parts of that category. Thrawn is far more focused on specific individual battles, specific tactics, as well as a overarching long-term strategy, but not so much focused on the political and ideological side, whereas Revan is far more personable, someone who will literally go out and unify people simply by sheer charisma and the force of his personality, as well, or her personality in my case, as well as being someone who also is fairly, you know, okay, I'll call you Lily. Oh, it's young Link. Oh, that's so cute. As well as being focused on the infrastructure, political, let's call it the statecraft side of things, right? Revan is someone who would be more comfortable being, for lack of a better way to put it, an emperor, whereas Thrawn is someone who would be more comfortable being a general. Make sense? And again, the two of them, hell of a team. And if we throw Anakin in there, then that's game. That's just the end of that one. So, anyways, that's my thinking on that one. I think I've answered the Templar's Creed question enough. I'm firm on this one. So we've talked about three genres: RPG, management, strategy. Which of these three would you go with? I just want like a poll here. I'm not gonna actually throw up a poll. Which of these three types would you go with Templar's Creed set in the Sengoku Jedi? And I gotta answer that too, so I'm not gonna look at chat. I want to think about this. Okay, I have my answer. I'm seeing an interesting mix here. Baron says, why not all three? My answer is 2.5. I would primarily focus on management. I think that would be the main focus, SimCity style. I think there would be a strategy element to it, and I think there would be an RPG element to it, but the main focus of the gameplay would be management. I like Sailder's idea. I like Sailder's idea of the... basically, you can literally just drop in and play an agent, a Templar agent, and go and spy and do little missions and stuff like that as effectively a mini-game. But yeah, like a nation-making kind of a thing, exactly. I also like the idea of there being battles. So, this is effectively cross-genre, but I'm also really big into cross-genre. Yeah, me too, bro. Go figure. I like the idea of, you know, again, primary focus is management, but then as you're setting up this and setting up this and setting up this, I don't know, the such and such clan is attacking this clan. You have to go in quick with whatever troops you have at the moment. Okay. And then there's like an actual battle, which you would then actually fight in some manner. Actually, yeah, Necro. Something similar to that on a national level. Or the Caesar series kind of did something similar as well. If you remember, that's an older game. But Caesar 1, 2, and 3. Have I ever played Heroes of Might and Magic? Yeah, I did that on stream, which was kind of neat. because that was kind of a nation, very, very, that was actually more of a board game, really. Board game nation building with tile-based battles in between. Why not Syndicate? Why not? What about Syndicate? I'm sorry, when I hear Syndicate, what I hear is, like, people in trench coats who are using guns that take over people's minds and make them kill people. Yeah, I'm surprised he's not on already, Gary. So if he's not on now, go ahead and do errands. Gotcha, Hazardous. Okay, I understand what you mean by that. Yeah, I get you. Ulmerich and Eingrad both say that management would be too much of a departure. I admittedly don't agree. However, probably not Hazardous. However, if we had to if we had to go first person, then I would have to throw almost all of my ideas out the window. I don't think any of them would work. I'd have to start from scratch because I simply cannot perceive a way right now without thinking about it all over from the scratch to play a game that basically isn't just, you know, Assassin's Creed but on the other side in such a perspective. So I'd have to think about that a lot. We could do that. It's just I haven't, and I have Kingdom Hearts play, so. I think that's all our questions for now. What do we got here? That's all our questions. Okay. Oh yeah, I had a brief Lego movie thing I was going to talk about. I'm actually not going to really do that. It was a good movie. You should go see it. There you go. The end. Without spoilers, I would say that the Lego Movie 2... Whoa. Started off... That's so strange. Started off weaker than Lego Movie 1. And then just suddenly became awesome by, like, the end of the latter half of the film. It was really interesting. Anyways, for those of you watching on YouTube, goodbye forever.